Communications and government relations used to be very distinct disciplines, very distinct professions, and in many respects they still are because of the technical knowledge that's required for each of them. If you're a communications professional, you're dealing with media, with social media, with a whole range of relationships and activities, metrics and standards, tactics and strategies that can sometimes be alien to government relations people. Likewise, if you're dealing with government relations, much of that, many of the things that you're dealing with are by their nature arcane, detailed, happening undercover, or in the proverbial but no longer existing and probably never did smoke-filled room. But increasingly over the years, as communications and government relations professionals, we have seen a merger of those, or maybe merger is not quite the best word, but an integration of those two disciplines as the goals, the tactics, and the strategies have become intertwined. And when you think about it, many government relations strategies, many government relations campaigns are based on communications, on the best communications, on messages, on ideas, on words and images. Likewise, communications campaigns, corporate communications, institutional communications, issues management, have taken on many of the trappings of political campaigns. So while the two aren't necessarily completely aligned and totally aligned, and will depend in part on in large part on the culture, they have a couple that they do have more in common than not. Starting with the general, I'd say the general goals and strategies of stopping bad things from happening, which is how many of us spend most of our day, and making good things happen, which is how we tell people that we spend most of our days. So what are those tactics and strategies? I can think of several. First, an increasing reliance on public opinion, on not just gut instinct, but on understanding what the public thinks, what the publics that we're working with believe and know about particular issues, and acting on that. In other words, research. Essential for creating a strong government relations campaign, whether you're dealing with federal, state, or local issues, and obviously essential for creating a strong communications campaign. Second is understanding and discipline around message and around words. Words and images matter. They matter to policymakers, they matter to the public, they matter to all the constituencies that we have to deal with. Third would be the multiple channels that we have to reach the people that ultimately make decisions, whether they are consumers or customers, buying our product, using our services, coming to the things that we want them to come to, or politicians who are looking both influenced by and looking for ways to influence the way that policy is made. Fourth would be a constant and I would say never-ending setting of expectations and resetting of expectations. What is doable? What is possible? In a world where everybody is a broadcaster, where everybody is a journalist, where everybody is a citizen, activist, and policymaker, the setting and the resetting of expectations, especially with C-suite level, with trustees, with directors, with CEOs and others, as well as those who dabble in the work that we do, it takes up an increasing amount of time, whether you're dealing with politics, policy, or communications, or media. Another area where the two are intersecting is the increasing need for both general leadership and the skills of the chief officers, but also understanding where the specialized expertise is. It's maybe not quite impossible, but it's pretty close to impossible for any single person to have the depth of knowledge to both develop and then act on the kinds of strategies and tactics that are necessary for the largest and most comprehensive and most complex kinds of institutions. So we call in specialists. We call in specialists when it comes to our legislative and government relations goals. We call in specialists when it comes to our communications and media goals. Another area where the two are intersecting and really have intersected is in the need to work with, to understand, to communicate with, in some cases to neutralize or to attack outside organizations, interest groups that may not necessarily be at the heart of your particular, or may not even have your institution's goals in mind. They may not even know what your institution's goals are, but they are going to latch on to a particular cause. Much as politicians and much as in political campaigns you have to deal with third parties, in communications as well. We're dealing with increasingly working not just the straight media relations, the direct to the audience, but we're working through and around and again in some cases, in many cases at cross purposes with very well funded, very highly motivated activists on all ends of the spectrum who are seeking to somehow influence or change or use to their benefit the work that we do. And then finally, of course, because you can't talk about these kinds of issues without uttering the phrase social media. So social media, much of social media has blown up the way that we communicate with our customers or clients, or in my case with our students and with our faculty and with our parents. It has also changed the game for political leadership and for government relations. The number of calls that a member's office receives has now been pretty much supplanted by the number of tweets and Facebook postings and everything else. So we're playing in the same game. We're using the same tactics. We're using the same strategies. Obviously, there will always be a place for, and a very essential place for, the kind of technical knowledge that is necessary to get through government relations activities. But more and more, we're in the same ballpark. We're dealing with the same kinds of issues in the same kinds of ways, and have to address them in the ways that make the best use of the resources that we have and help us achieve the goals that we want.